Hi, I'm Paul Morin with the Energy Conservatory, and welcome to our webinar. Today we're going to be introducing the TEC Auto Test app. This webinar will introduce you to our newest app that will allow you to do an automated blower door and duct leakage test from an iPad or an iPhone. The audio test app will generate a report with data directly from the DG700 with a Wi-Fi link or from a DG1000. And a PDF report will include your location, a geotag, and the time of test, the timestamp. And that can be easily emailed or sent to a cloud service such as Google Drive or Dropbox. And you can choose between the Resonant or the ASTM E779 test standards. That will give you the maximum flexibility. So our agenda today, we'll be talking about the features of the new auto test app. We'll talk about the universal settings that you want to get in there when you're setting it up to begin with. The purpose of the test, getting it set up to begin with, it'll allow you to set up parameters that you use most often, so it'll make it easy for you the next time you're doing the same test. You won't have to go through that whole process again. So it really helps speed things up, and gives you a lot of flexibility. And we'll talk about projects and what we mean by projects, and then we'll perform a blower door and a duct leakage test so you can see how that's done. And then we'll talk about sharing the test reports, and we'll give you a brief overview of backing up data files. So if something happens to your phone or iPad, you've got a backup copy of those somewhere. Features currently works with an iPhone or an iPad. It's definitely easier. I think you'll find it easier if you've got an iPad to use that instead of a phone, because you have more real estate on an iPad than you do on an iPhone. You can wirelessly connect to a DG700 with a Wi-Fi link, or a DG1000 has built-in Wi-Fi. And you can do an automated blower door test and duct leakage test. In the past, we haven't had an automated duct leakage test, so this is something new, and this allows you to do an automated test without having to bring a computer into the field, which is nice. And then you can generate a PDF report that includes a geotag and timestamp, so when you did the test and where you were, and then being able to share that report with via email or cloud sharing right from the house is really a nice option if you've got an internet connection. And that geotag and sharing the report will require an internet connection. Okay. Next, I'll pull up an iPad screen and an iPad, and it will go to the settings screen on that. Okay, let me pull that up here. Okay, so we've got our iPad, and let's go to the TEC Auto Test app. You can see that icon here. You download that from the App Store. Okay, and we'll come up first to the project screen, and then you'll see settings in blue over here, and anything in blue we can click on, and that brings us to the test settings page. And the first thing, these are universal settings. So these are settings that will make it easy to bring, will kind of reduce the amount of information you have to add to customize your tests. So you'll set up these test settings, universal test settings. So it'll be one of the first things you'll do when you launch the app and get everything set up here, and then that kind of customizes what your report will look like. It simplifies a lot of things. You don't have to keep entering the same data in over and over again. So the first is what your fans are. So you can see we've got a blower door fan and a Duct Blaster fan are our devices, and you can edit these and customize these if you'd like. So we'll pull up the Model 3 fan. You can see there's little arrow marks on the side here, and I'm gonna choose one of those. So now we've got our Model 3 fan, and we can customize that label if we want to. If we're ever using more than one fan, this is the place to enter in the one that you're using. And so you could put you could put your name there. You could say Paul's Model 3 fan or Bob's Model 3 fan. So you can, if you choose that, it'll come up with a way where you can change that label. Okay, and then the next is the model, and if you're in the US, you're going to be using a Model 3 fan. So it gives you a choice of model, of a Model 3, a Model 4, and those are used in different countries. If you've got 220 voltage, or Model Fan 4 is European model, or Duct Blaster B fan are your options there. And then you can also enter the serial number in there. It'll let you enter the serial number. And serial number you'll find on one of the motor mount brackets. And those are the silver brackets that hold the motor to the fan housing. There's 3 of those, and there'll be a plate on one of those brackets that has a serial number in. And you can enter that on here, and then that'll show up in the report. And then the next option is custom calibration. You can check if you've done that. So it'll just show a calibration date that will show up in your report. And the only people that will pay for a custom calibration are if you're doing testing for the Army Corps of Engineers. They're the only ones who require that custom calibration. So so then you'll have your fan set up. Let's go back to the settings page. Duct Blaster, you'll do that same thing. Enter the serial number, and if you've got a custom calibration date. Next, we'll be talking about the purpose of test section. And the app supports both envelope and duct tests and a number of different test standards. We created these purpose of tests to help you track and easily use the test settings you're most likely to use. We created 6 purpose of tests to cover a number of different envelope and duct testing applications. So you can decide, you can edit these, and you can remove some of these if you're not going to use all of them. Whatever works best for your purposes. Remember, we can go to the edit button here. I can choose that, and then I can choose a few different standards, and then I can hit the trash can here to delete them. Or I can add some by hitting the plus sign over here. So let's take a look at some of these, and you can see there's arrows on this side. I'm going to choose the first one, and that's a IECC 2012-15 envelope leakage test. And I can edit that name by choosing that line under label, and then I can change that. I can change it so it says IECC 2012 or IECC 2015. So I can change the label of that so I know exactly what it means, and then however I want that to show up in the report also. And I could choose between envelope and duct leakage. This one's going to be duct leakage. And then for test standard, I can choose between ASTM E779 Multipoint or Resonant 380 one-point test. Then because I've chosen the multi-point test under test pressures, I can choose that, and now you see all the different test pressures that it's gonna take. So it's gonna take a flow at 60, 54, 48, etc. for those 8 points. It'll calculate a CFM 50, and then more importantly, an air change per hour. That's what we're interested for the code compliance, is the air change per hour number. And I'll go back. So the leakage metric in this case, because we're doing code compliance, is air change per hour at 50, and the leakage target is 3. And I can choose between depressurization or pressurization. Other leakage target options we have, besides air changes per hour, are CFM 50 if I'm just doing just a straight blower door test, and not customizing it for the square footage of the building, or CFM 50 per square foot of floor area, which might be used for LEED or some other standards, or none. If I don't have a target I'm shooting for and don't need that metric included in a report, then I don't need to do that. But in this case, for code compliance, ACH 50. And our target is 3. In your area, it might be 5 or 7, and then you can edit that also to meet your needs. So then we'll go back to the settings page, and we'll look at the duct leakage. So if we're doing duct leakage for code compliance, we can choose this one, duct leakage test, CFM 25 per 100 square feet of floor area, and the default is pressurized, and then you can set this up for however you typically do your tests. We can look at some of the other leakage target metrics here, so I'll choose that one. And so we have just CFM 25 as a percent air handler flow, or none. So those are options for selecting the metric target, and we'll be adding more test standards over time too, but right now we've started with just one multi-point and one single point test for that purpose. So let's go back to settings. The next one is California, and that one, as I mentioned, is a CFM under our leakage target metric, is flow at 25 pascals as a percent of air handler flow. And then, so that was the third one. The fourth one is just a CFM 50. So if I'm just doing a single point blower door test, and that's all I need is a single point number, then that's another option. Next one is a duct leakage, where we're just doing we're not doing it for code compliance, we're just doing a straight duct leakage test. There's no leakage target metric. There's no special number we're shooting for. And then the last one is New York IECC CFM at 50, and we chose this one because New York does have an option, if you're doing multifamily testing, to test it unit by unit, and rather than using air changes per hour, you can use CFM per 100 square feet of floor area, and the target is 0.3. So we added that as one of the options too. So you can customize these to meet whatever your needs are. So that's really slick and speeds up the process. When you start a test, the first thing it'll ask you is what's your purpose of test, and you can choose one of those, and that speeds things up and can customize how you use your how you're doing your test typically. Okay, and then the next one, we'll drop down to the next one, is units, and right now we just have CFM for a flow metric and Fahrenheit for temperature, but over time we will be adding metric to that also. The auto test settings here, the first one is the fan adjust rate, and the default is 3, and you can change that if you want. So it comes up with a keyboard, and you can type in something to change that if you like. So the fan adjust rate is how fast the fan will speed up or slow down when the software is searching. So when it's trying to get it up to 50 pascals, how fast it'll get up to 50. So on a calm day, you can set that number much higher, and on a windy day, you might want to set it lower, so it's not swinging back and forth so much trying to get it to pressures. It'll do it more slowly once you get up to 50. So you'll kind of learn how to use those, and over time to best fit your needs and kind of the wind conditions in your area also. Target tolerance. The next one is when you're shooting for 50 pascals, at some point it'll start taking data. And in this case, we have the target tolerance set for 2. So once it ramps up that fan speed to be within 2 pascals of 50, it'll start taking data. And on really windy days, you might need to widen that tolerance, or it won't take data at all. It can't get within 2, so you may need to change that to 4 or 5 or something like that. And then we set the high pressure limit to 110 pascals. We don't want you depressurizing or pressurizing a house by more than 110, so that's why we put that number in there. If there's sometimes people are testing windows at higher pressures or something like that, and they may want a higher maximum pressure, so you have the ability to do that. And then next is technician. So go down here a little bit. So you can enter your name and your credentials and email address. So all these again are specific to that. They're part of your universal settings. So those will stay the same unless your email changes or you got some additional credentials, then you can edit them. So you enter that information, and then your testing company information also. Enter that all in. And that's a nice thing about universal settings, is you only have to enter those in once, and then you're all set. Okay, then you'll see on the project screen that there's one example in here to start with. So, but first let's go around, before we look in that example in a little more depth, let's go around the screen and kind of show what the different things are here. So we already went to settings and saw the settings page. On the opposite corner here is the little eye screen here, and if I touch that, that brings us to about. Just tells what version we're using, and our contact information at the Energy Conservatory, and then to report an error or submit feedback, you can choose those. And the help menu is actually helpful. I've run across some help menus that really aren't very informative, but these are if you want to get directly to the information about those screens, you can touch on them and it'll bring you to the screen where you want to find information about, or you can just scroll down and you can just manually go through and find what you're looking for, rather than using. But if you want to pick one in the middle, building and customer screen, you just choose that one. It brings you right to builder and customer screen. So a lot of information there. It's a good idea to kind of read through take an hour or so to read through all of this information, so you've got a good idea of what it is exactly, and then that'll make getting around and using it a little bit easier. So that was the information screen up here. You can also see we've got our that's just showing the battery on our iPad there. Down on the lower part is edit, and that again just allows us to choose that one. A circle appears before example. Now you can choose that and then delete it, so it just gives you that ability to I'm going to hit the done there. Gives you the ability to either add, there's a plus on the right, or if you want to delete it, click edit, choose which one you want to delete, and then the trash can will be here, and you can trash whichever ones you don't want. And then across the bottom here, once you get a long list of these, you can sort them either by in alphabetical order or by date. So that's a little clock that it shows there. So either alphabetically, A to Z or Z to A, or time, soonest to oldest. So that'll help also. And if maybe you have a builder that you do a lot of testing for code compliance, you can always start out with the name of the builder, and then and then name it based on an address or something, so you can identify it. So you can think about how to name your files in a way that sorting them will help you find them quickly. So that's a nice feature. So projects. This is the projects page, and projects. The best way to think of it is it's a house. It's a house that you'll do a envelope test and a duct leakage code compliance test, for example. So let's kind of step through on creating a project, and you'll see better what's involved in it. So hit the plus to create a new project, and it'll ask us to give it a name. So let's just call this Smith House. Oops. Okay. All right. And then we'll enter the building and customer information here. We've given it a test ID, so we'll hit the arrow here and bring us to the customer information. And one of the really neat features of this is if you're connected to the internet, then you can take advantage of that geotag and to find your location. So I'm going to click here under this blue determine location, and that will bring us and show us right where we are. So it found our house, and now we're gonna choose use current location, and then it'll come up with the address. And if that address is correct, which it is, we can say use this address. Now it pulls in all the information, the latitude, longitude, the altitude, which is nice because E779 you need the altitude. Gave a timestamp of when you did that search. So this timestamp is when you did that location search. Okay. Now we're going to go back to our building and customer information, and now it pulled all that information in, so we don't have to enter it. So a real nice feature. You don't have to, some people to prep their house, they might enter all this data in before they go out in the field, but in this case you don't need to, because all of that information is here already. And then next it asks for the customer information, and your customer information may not have the same address, but if it does, in this case it does, so I can just do copy building address and it'll carry that down below here, so I don't have to enter that in again. So I just have to enter in our customer's name. So enter that in. Okay, so now we have all our customer information in there. So now we'll go back to our project by using this arrow, our left arrow up here. So we got our customer information. So next is test. So we can click on the plus here to add a test. But before I do that, I'm going to do a quick review on because now we're gonna have to connect to our gauge, and so our Wi-Fi communication needs. First, we're going to need to make a connection between the gauge, either a DG700 or DG1000 with a Wi-Fi link, and our iPad or iPhone to do an automated test. And then also another thing we have to think about is we need to connect the iPad, iPhone to the internet for geotagging, or to share a report, to send to email that report, or to send it to the cloud. So and we have a number of different options on how to accomplish this. The first, we'll need to connect the gauge to the iPad, iPhone to do the automated test. And you can set the DG1000 to create network mode, or the Wi-Fi link in the AP Direct Connect mode. And both these are referring to the same process, where the gauge is broadcasting a Wi-Fi network that you'll connect to. So in both these cases, you don't need an internet connection or a router to make this connection. It's just connecting. It's sending out a Wi-Fi signal, and on the iPad, you'll see that gauge as one of the networks, and you'll connect to it. First time you make that connection, you'll need to enter a password, but you will connect the iPad to that broadcast network from the gauge. Another option that works well is you put the DG1000 in join network mode, or the Wi-Fi link in router mode, and have a LTE mobile hotspot. And in this example, we're showing a Verizon Jetpack, which is less than half the size of a cell phone, so portable and easy to carry around, and costs about $50, and then you'll have to add it to your data plan. So you'll need to set up the DG1000 in the join network mode, or the Wi-Fi link. You'll have to set it up in router mode in order to make that connection. And this allows a connection, you to connect both the gauge and the iPad to the LTE hotspot, and have one source for internet and gauge connection. Next, we'll talk a little bit more about connection options to connect to the internet for geotagging or sharing reports. And if you've got an iPad or an iPhone with cellular service, you can connect to the internet that way. Works best if the iPad or iPhone Wi-Fi is not connected to the gauge broadcast network when using these features. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Next option is have the iPad connected to a iPhone personal hotspot. And then the third option is iPhone, iPad connected to the LTE mobile hotspot. And this works seamlessly and allows you to do both geotagging, sharing, and the auto test if both the iPad, iPhone, and Gauge are connected to this hotspot. Then that allows you to, from beginning to end of the process to have that one connection, and it will work more seamlessly. Okay, so now we're ready to run a test. So now we're on the Smith House projects page, and remember, projects are homes. We can think of projects as being homes, and we've chosen Smith Home. And to add a test, we're going to click the plus sign here. And when we do that, it will come up with our test ID and purpose of test screen. And the first default is the IACC 2012-2015 envelope test, and we'll give that a name. We'll call that Smith code envelope. Okay. And now we'll enter in the building volume here. Let's say that's 30,000. Done. Okay. And we can see down on the lower left it says run test in blue. Choose that, and then the Gauge connect is in blue. So if we look for the blue, we kind of look for where our next step is. And then once it's made that connection, then the serial number of the Gauge will show up there. So we can see the serial number of our Gauge that we've connected to, and the green status bar goes idle monitoring. So now we're ready to start our test. Down on the lower left, we'll go start test. And it's asking for our temperature, indoor, and outdoor. It's winter time in Minnesota. So we're at 5 degrees in Minneapolis. And our altitude was pulled in from our geotag. So we'll go continue. So it's prompting us to cover the fan to continue for our baseline start, and our fan is covered, so we'll continue. It did an auto zero, and now it's measuring our baseline, taking our baseline measurements. Now it's prompting us to uncover the fan. Continue. And we've got ring A on, so we'll choose ring A. Okay. It's ramping our fan speed up. It's auto zeroing and taking a sample at 60 pascals. And you can see our building pressure is being displayed here. Our fan pressure and our fan flow. So this isn't the flow at 50, this is the fan at whatever pressure we're targeting. So those we can view during the test. And our target pressures are listed here. So from 60 in increments down to 18 pascals. And it displays our ring here too, so we can verify, yes, ring A is what our configuration is set to, and ring A is on the fan. The other thing we can watch out for is our fan pressure. Once we get down below, about 25 pascals or so, it's going to prompt us to change rings. So we can kind of have a heads up on how close we are to needing a ring change. So now we're on our 5th data point now. 36 pascals is what we're shooting for. It's taking that sample. So now we can see we're getting, it's probably on this one, it'll prompt us to, it's close. It is sampling. Okay, so we're above 25 pascals, so it was able to get that data point in. And now our fan is barely moving, so we'll get a prompt. There we go. So now it's asking us to put ring B on. Okay, continue. Sampling. Now we're taking our last data point, and then after this last data point, it's going to be looking for a second baseline reading. Okay, prompting us to cover the fan again. Okay, continue. It's measuring our baseline. And the test's complete. Would you like to view the test report? And we'll go yes. Now it pulls up our report. So we can see on the report our building information, the customer name, our test ID, that it was IACC, our measured CFM at 50, so it calculates the CFM and an accuracy of that test. In our volume coefficient, correlation coefficient, it was pretty windy today, so we ended up at a 0.994 for a correlation coefficient. Anything below 0.99, so if we got 0.98 something, we'd probably want to redo that test. So it was kind of a windy day, and what kind of stands out in bold here are the test results, and this is meant to highlight if you've got you're giving this test to a code official, mention that to look for the bold test results. That's the number he's interested in. He's interested in the measured leakage is 2.27 air changes per hour. He's not interested in a CFM 50. He's interested in an air changes per hour. He knows that 3 is a pass So that's what he's looking for. So this one is a pass. If it was greater, this first number of the measured leakage was greater than 3 air changes per hour, then it'd be listed as a fail. So so that's our envelope test. And then you've got all of the data. You know, it shows you've got a good correlation coefficient, which makes it a very repeatable test, and the accuracy of the measured CFM 50 is plus or minus 3.8%, which is pretty good. Sometimes you'll get down to less than 1%, but we're a little bit windy, so we've got, and we passed by a pretty good margin today, so we're in good shape. All right, so I'm going to go back to, up here, we'll go back to our test, and then we'll choose done up here. Okay, we'll go back to Smith House. So now our envelope test is done. So let's do a duct test next, so you can get an idea of what our duct test is going to look like. So we'll get that set up. Okay, so we're going to add a test here, and this time we're going to do a duct test. So we're going to go to IECC 2012-2015 duct leakage, and for our test ID, we'll call it Smith code duct, and then click OK. All right, so now it's giving us our parameters that we had set up in the purpose of the test. And we'll add the conditioned floor area in there. I got 3,000 square feet. Okay, we're ready to run our test here. In blue down here, lower left. Run test. And we got to hit that blue connect again. Up here. And we've got our Duct Blaster fan. We're idle monitoring. We're ready to start our test. And we've got ring 3 on. Click OK. Looks like we ramped up a little too quick that time. Oops, we got the wrong sign on our, gotta switch our sign on our A channel. So now we can see our duct pressure here and our flow. Test complete. That's pretty quick, huh? We're just got a single point test here. Would you like to see the test report? Yes. So we got a tight duct system where so again the building inspector is going to look for the test results, and we can see we're at a 0.69 CFM 25 per 100 square feet of floor area. and our target was 4. So we passed with flying colors with that one. So now we've seen our tests and in our test results. So what we can do now is look at sending those emailing or sending those tests to the cloud. So we can see up here in our on our report page, we can choose that icon. And because we have email and we have Google Drive and Dropbox all set up here, we can choose any of those on where we would want to send it. So let's choose mail. So it gave us a subject name there, and we can say who we want that to go to, and I'll send that to myself here, and off it goes. You can hear it just sent that off. So it's that simple. After you're done with your test, if you're hooked up to one of those portable hotspot kind of things, it's all seamless, and we can send that right up to the cloud. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is backing up your iPad with all your test results on it. So we will I'm going to click our back arrows here. I'm going to go back to Smith House, back to projects, and in our project screen there's the little information button here, the I button, and that gets us to the help menu. So we're going to use that help menu. And one of the last items on the list here is backing up data files. And we're going to want to do that periodically. So if something happens to our iPad, then we've got our data backed up somewhere. So we'll choose backing up data files. So it describes that in here on how you can do that. So it says, in order to back up project and test files, users will need to back up the entire mobile device by turning on iCloud Backup or by backing up to their computer using iTunes. If user performs a restore of the entire device, the project and test files for this app will also be restored. Currently, there's no way to specifically back up the app, just the app data files, without backing up the entire device. So, so it's good practice to periodically do a backup of your data files, so so you have a record of them on your computer or in iCloud or something like that. So, just something to keep in mind. It's good practice to back your files up. So that concludes our webinar. So I'll just toggle through to the end here, and that has my contact information. Thanks for attending the webinar, and like I say, we appreciate input on what type of webinars you'd like to see in the future. And we're excited to finally get this auto test app out. We've been working on it for a few years now, and we're really happy with the results. And we finally have an automated duct leakage test. We didn't have that before, and now we also have a blow at our test, something similar to TEC that you can do on a mobile device. So that's also helpful, especially for code compliance when it's that easy to run the test, including a geotag and a timestamp, and email it off as soon as you're done with it. So we'll take time now to answer any questions you might have. Okay, well, I was just taking some time to go over and finish answering some questions, but I'll do a quick review of questions that have come in during the webinar, and feel free to type in additional questions as we're going along, and we will cover those also. Um, so one of the first questions that was asked is, one thing I should point out is this app is now available on the App Store, and you're probably the first people to hear that. So that's a bonus of attending the webinar. It has been up on our website for the last few days. So if you've visited our website, you might have seen that. But now you know that that app has been released, and it's a free download from the App Store. One of the questions was, does E779 do a pressurization and depressurization test? And the answer to that is no. It will just do one or the other. If you want both, our TEC Express software on a PC has that option, and you can do both pressurization and depressurization on that. Another question, kind of off topic, but was related to support and service of the DG700 pressure and flow gauge. As you know, we've been selling the DG1000 for a while, and we are continuing to sell the DG700, and we'll continue selling those as long as if we have enough boards available. Those boards are no longer being made, and we need to keep a certain amount of those in stock for support and repairs. So, you know, within a year or two, probably closer to 2 years, we'll continue selling the DG700, and we will continue to support and service those for at least a decade. We're kind of at the end of our parts for the DG3 pressure and flow gauge, and but we are still supporting and servicing those, but we're kind of getting to the end of that. But we'll continue servicing the DG for years and years to go. Probably, you know, we're expecting another decade, similar to what the DG 3 support was. Are there any plans to update to a Resonant multipoint test? Is one of the options that is on our list of additional standards that we'll be adding to this over time. So you'll just need to update your apps when updates become available, and that's one of the things that we'll be doing. And if there are additional things you'd like to see available, please give us feedback. We're always looking for feedback on improvements, and as with our other software and apps, we do periodically make improvements and release newer versions. Question, will it save multiple fans? And the answer to that is yes. You could put multiple blower door fans in there, multiple Duct Blaster fans. You could add, you certainly can add multiple fans, and then, you know, with different serial numbers, and you would name them differently, etc. This I thought was a good question. Does the Resonant single point test standard automatically add 10%? The Resonant standard does require, if you do a single point test, you do need to add 10% to the results, but our app does not add that 10%. Does it make density corrections for temperature and elevation? And the answer to that is yes. You do add the temperature and elevation in there, and it does that density correction. Does it take data in 10-second averages? And the answer to that is yes. All of the data collected is taken in 10-second averages per the Resonant. For the Resonant standard, the E779 standard, however, I think does a longer interval.
than 10 seconds. But with the Resonant standard, it requires a minimum of 10 seconds. But this takes, with the E779, it takes longer time averages. Can multiple duct tests show up on one report? So if you have multiple duct systems in a house, can multiple duct tests show up on one report? And the answer to that is no. We can only include one. For simplicity's sake, we're only including one duct test per report, but you can certainly have multiple duct tests per project. So a project is a house. You can have multiple tests per house. Is there a test file available, like in TEC? In TEC, you have a .bld file, so you actually have a file that that's the record of your test. In this case, no, there's not a test file. You generate a PDF from the test results, and that's your record. And you can do that, in the future. And if you back up your iPad periodically, you've got your record that way. But there's not a test file you can send to somebody. You can just send the PDF. Let's see if we have any additional questions. How do we get our CEUs? Those will be uploaded to BPI after the test, after the webinar, and then you'll see them show up. You'll see them show up there. Is this available on Android? No, it is not. It will be in the future. We have some other priorities first. We've got a lot of things going on right now. We're expecting it will likely be available on Android towards the end of the year. There's also been talk of putting this directly on the DG1000, and that may happen this year also. But it will only be available on iPad, on iOS devices, iPad, iPhone, for a while. Will there be a leakage to the outside duct test? You guys are asking all the questions that we expected to get today. There will not be a leakage to outside test in the near future. We've got other priorities for apps and software and updates to apps and software and updates to the DG1000 that will be ahead of a leakage to the outside duct test. We will come out with one eventually, but that will be down the road a little bit. Okay, I think that's all of our questions. Thanks for attending our webinar. And if you'd like to view this again or tell other people about it, it will be up on our website soon, within the next couple of days. And all of our past webinars are available there also for viewing. So check those out and give us feedback on this webinar or any webinars you'd like to see in the future. Thanks.